today I felt like dressing like a vampire, and tomorrow I might feel like looking like Laura Ingalls. So these are the rules I had for myself doing low-buy this year, and I'm quite glad to be done with it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to discuss some of the things that I've learned or conclusions that I've come to after a year of low-buy, combined with a lot of decluttering. I am calling it my wardrobe revelations and resolutions, because it sounds snazzy or whatever. Really, I just have a bunch of bullet points that I've tried to group similar ones together into categories, so let's just get started. The first category I'm calling wardrobe curation and or management. The first thing I've learned is that most items in my wardrobe have an average lifespan of about 3 to 4 years before I no longer really want to wear them, give or take a year. When I first purchase something is definitely that honeymoon phase where I want to wear it all the time. I want to try pairing it with different items. I'm very excited about it, and my interest in the item definitely decreases a little bit each successive year. And some items are an exception to this. These tend to become my forever items that I will keep until they no longer fit. So just a few examples. I have a red floral button down that I bought in the spring of 2018, I think. So that is 4 years that I have had that in my wardrobe, but I definitely can tell my interest in it is waning. I'm not excited about it as much as I was at first, but that's pretty good, I think, to get 4 active years out of it and potentially a 5th. On the other end though, I have a rust-colored linen button-down that I got this past summer, well, late in the summer, almost fall, and I really enjoyed wearing that a lot while it was still warm out. And this upcoming summer, I probably won't be quite as excited about it, but I definitely still am looking forward to wearing that a lot again. I think a good example of my forever items would be some of my really old floral dresses that I've thrifted. I just can't part with them, and I might only wear them once a year, but I really like them, and I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. Which brings me to my next point. Just because you haven't worn something in 6 months to a year does not mean you need to declutter it. I know that's kind of the conventional wisdom that a lot of people will tell you if you haven't worn something in a year to get rid of it, and I think that is great advice for people who just have way too many clothes and need to cut back immediately. But if you have a healthy amount of clothes and you're just looking to curate things, if you really like something, don't get rid of it just because you haven't worn it in a year. And I mean, really, how many of us have actually been wearing everything that's in our wardrobe for the past 2 years? We haven't had anywhere to go. I know for myself personally, I definitely have a handful of items that I don't wear very often, but I really like them. And the rare occasion that I do break them out, I think is worth keeping them around because they just make me happy. Number 3, an item of clothing doesn't have to work with a bunch of items to belong in your wardrobe. Maybe it only works with one outfit, but if it's an outfit that you'll repeat and wear a lot, it's probably worth it, especially if this is an item that you really love and you're really excited about and you'll get a lot of use out of it with that one outfit. Go for it. Now, if it's something that you're not sure how much you'll wear it and it only goes with one outfit, then maybe skip it. And lastly, within this category, the wardrobe curation process never ends. There is no such thing as a perfectly sustainable wardrobe. I have found that every single year of my adulthood thus far, my body has changed. Every freaking year. It's really annoying. The truth of the matter is, my body is going to keep changing and will require new clothes to suit it. Also, my style is going to keep changing, and I would like to acquire new clothes to suit that new style and express myself through my wardrobe. It's okay. I definitely have kind of been hung up on this idea that I need to keep my clothes forever, like 10 plus years, even if they don't fit me anymore or I don't really like them anymore. And that's just not realistic. I think it's a good goal to get as much use out of our clothing as possible, but it shouldn't make you feel guilty. Category number 2 I put under the umbrella of personal style, and my first conclusion is that I am abandoning the need to have a personal style. There was a video I watched a couple months ago by Bliss Foster. I'll link it down below if I remember, and I think he said it so much better than I ever could, basically just explaining why the idea of having a personal style can be very limiting. And I do find that it's very limiting and stressful and just unrealistic to how people are. I definitely at times feel this pressure to like put a label on what my style is, but there's just such a wide range of things that I want to wear. Like today I felt like dressing like a vampire, and tomorrow I might feel like looking like Laura Ingalls. I definitely get a lot of inspiration from different shows and movies that I watch, often with a historical element to them. I really enjoy theatrical costuming, and so some of that comes into play as well. And so that's just a lot to try to squeeze into one label. So I just want to focus on wearing stuff that I like and that makes me feel good and not worry so much about putting a label on it, because Yo, I'm too old for that. Number two, I've said this before, I love ruffles, but they don't love me. I think this top might be the one exception. Usually I feel a bit overwhelmed by stuff that has ruffles on it. For some reason, this top does not make me feel that way. Maybe it's just because it has a higher neckline, or maybe because it's just solid black, I'm not sure. Maybe you disagree and think it overwhelms me, and I don't care. I don't want to hear it because this is my favorite blouse. I found that I decluttered a lot of things that had ruffles on them this past year, or I just straight up removed ruffles from stuff that I did end up keeping. Which makes me kind of sad because I love hyper feminine frilly things, but I guess I just have to enjoy them on other people. Because the things that make me look and feel most feminine tend to be very simple silhouettes with simple, clean lines. Sometimes like smaller lace or tiny ruffles is okay, but definitely like bigger billowing ruffles, I can't get away with them. And lastly, within personal style, I am a boot girl. I love wearing boots. I feel most like myself in them, and I really need to, well, I don't need to, but I want to give more attention to expanding my boot collection this year. They're very expensive. Well, at least good quality ones are. I can never find good ones at the thrift store, so I'm just gonna have to suck it up and buy them new, invest in some good ones that'll last me a while. Because right now I only have my Doc Martens and my really crappy old lace-up brown ones. They're okay, but they don't really provide the range that I want. I could wear boots with every outfit in every season. I don't know, I just really like boots. Not like the knee-high rider boots though. I might try a pair if I can find some good ones secondhand, but I'm not sold on those yet. And finally, onto my last category, which I am calling steps forward. These are things that I want to try implementing in the year to come. First one being to make more time for fitness. I just don't feel healthy or strong right now. It's not necessarily about weight, it's just about not utilizing this machine that I've been given to its full capacity. And I'm also just realizing that I will never be totally happy with my wardrobe and with how my clothes look and feel if I'm not also comfortable and confident in my body. There was a video by Frugal Aesthetic that I watched recently where he went into the fashion iceberg, and all the way at the bottom of the iceberg, when you get past the layers of high fashion crazy stuff that I didn't know what he was talking about half the time, all the way at the bottom was the conclusion that the most fashionable thing you can have is a healthy body. And I found that very funny because that's kind of the conclusion I've come to. Number two is let myself get more experimental with thrifting. Now that my clothing fasting is over and my stupid low buy is done, I just want to let myself go to the thrift store and see what I can see, find what I can find. Not frivolously, of course, but now that I have ruled out a bunch of things that I know I don't like and narrowed down my style preferences even more, I want to give myself some room to explore. And I especially want to explore a moodier side to my wardrobe. I've just been really wanting to play around more with a lot of darker colors and richer patterns and textures, so the thrift store is definitely the place to do that. But also, point number three, I want to let myself buy things new. I definitely have felt the pressure to get everything secondhand because I have to be sustainable, and the only way to do that is to take the entire burden of sustainability on my individual shoulders and make sure I never buy anything new. Yeah, that's not a good plan. Over the past year or two, I definitely have passed over new items that I really, really liked and knew I would get a lot of use out of because I thought, oh, well, I ought to look for this secondhand first. And while that's a good sentiment, oftentimes I ended up spending more money and more time trying to find a comparable item thrifted than if I would have just bought the new item to begin with, and I could have been wearing it and getting a lot of use out of it the whole time. I definitely prefer to buy things secondhand, but it's not wrong to buy things new. I need to stop beating myself up for dumb things like that. Number four, embrace my crunchy side. Charles says I am entering my hippie phase. I think it's just my age. Basically, all I mean by this is that I want to start sourcing clothing items that are made with natural fibers more than synthetic. Sometimes I just start to think about the fact that our clothing is made of plastic and sometimes contains harmful materials and chemicals, and the fact that it's right up against our skin, and if I think about it way too much, I get a little freaked out. So this is not going to be an overnight change, but gradually over the years, I want to start looking for more natural fibers. I also want to start moving away from traditional bras. I haven't worn underwire in many, many years, but even just your typical structured t-shirt bra, I'm kind of just done with it. I want to start moving more toward unstructured bralettes, and then especially in the cooler months, if I'm wearing a thicker sweater or multiple layers, I really don't need more than just a camisole underneath. And lastly, within this point, I also want to start looking into barefoot or minimal shoes. I know that that's kind of at odds with wanting to get more boots, because one is very structured and one is not, but just with the foot issues that I've been having over the past year, I figured they might be worth looking into. There was a little girl at church who a couple months ago made the very poignant statement that shoes are feet prisons, and every day that rings truer and truer. Number 5, start mixing metals with my jewelry. I know for some people that's a big taboo, and they would say that you either need to wear all silver or all gold, and for the most part I do find that gold tends to look better on me, but silver also doesn't look bad either, and I just want to give myself that freedom to play around and mix my jewelry together more, especially because I do have a lot of really nice silver pieces that I haven't been wearing lately. And so I've started small with this. I've just been wearing my rings a lot more lately, which I used to do in college and then I kind of stopped, but this is just a small way to start mixing my metals. I have 1 silver and 1 gold on each hand until I get more comfortable and work my way up to necklaces. This is just a little way to do that. But I think that might be something fun to try out. And the last goal within Steps Forward is just to actually wear the clothes I want to wear and forget what everyone else might think. I find that I often don't wear the outfits that I really want to because I'm worried about being too conspicuous or about getting, those little side comments, which I have a lot in the past. I've come downstairs and gotten the raised eyebrows and the "Okay, Melody." And I vividly remember at my last job going into the break room and one of the women I worked with looks at my outfit and goes,
"That's an interesting outfit."
Which is not a compliment, by the way. So I didn't respond as if it was one. I just replied, "Yep. Like no one asked you, Deborah."
Leave your stupid comments in your pocket.
I think people don't realize how self-conscious those comments can make you feel, but I've definitely been letting them get to me too much. So this year I want to challenge myself to just tell people to shove it. And so finally we come to my conclusions about my conclusions. So with all of that said, I'm not doing another low buy year, at least not officially. The thing is, I've always been very frugal and I don't spend frivolously, so the limits I put on myself were kind of just punishing in a lot of ways. It was effective for stopping some less than ideal spending when it came to books and like makeup and skincare, but when it came to clothing, it just was an unnecessary stressor. I found that as I continued to declutter, I would find gaps in my wardrobe, but then I didn't have enough spaces in my low buy left to fill those gaps. So combining decluttering with low buy definitely can have its uses, but for me, going about it with an item limit was not the best way to do it. So for this upcoming year, what I'm probably going to do is just set a monthly monetary limit for extra spending, like non-necessity items. And that could include books, makeup, clothes, crafting stuff. I think just choosing a monetary limit will be more effective for our financial goals rather than a strict item number limit. So even though it was very stressful, it definitely wasn't pointless. I think learning what doesn't work for me was also quite useful. And so I hope some of my reflections can be useful to you as well. Unless I randomly am struck with a bolt of energy and motivation, I probably won't see you guys again until 2022. So until the next one, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!